Psalm chapter 63. O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. So I have looked for you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you on my bed, I meditate on you in the night watches, because you have been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of your wings I will rejoice. My soul follows close behind you. Your right hand upholds me. But those who seek my life to destroy it shall go into the lower parts of the earth. They shall fall by the sword. They shall be a portion for jackals. But the king shall rejoice in God. For everyone who swears by him shall glory. By the mouth of those who speak lies shall be stopped. But the mouth of those who speak lies shall be stopped. What a joy and privilege it is to have fellowship with the Lord. That this is a testimony of God's people, that our assurance, our life, our joy, everything that we have rests in the hands of the Lord. We're reminded, that life is short in this time period that we have, and we're not guaranteed a tomorrow. But what a joy it is for the people of God, knowing that our life is in the hands of God and is not dependent upon anyone else. If we are, as David, and people are seeking to take our life and destroy it, there's nothing in that. There's still nothing but joy in our lives. In James chapter 1, we're reminded of that, where he says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." That's the joy that we have in the Lord, is this place of rest and assurance, as David could rest, that my life is in God's hands. And therefore, every moment that we go through life is this choice, right? And this, I'm reminded of this love that he talks about of God. There's nothing comparable to the love of God. There's nothing to measure the love of God. It's boundless, it's endless. And the more that we pursue Christ, we begin to realize this. It's why I think, the greatest men of God that we read about were also the most humble people, because they realize how great this love of God is and how deficient that they are in their own lives. That in comparison to the world, you may say, well, that's a great person. But in comparison to Christ, they realize, I don't love like Christ. I don't have these attributes, these fruits of the Spirit. I've scraped the surface and I've tasted some of them, but they are not the reality of my life. I love my neighbor and I love those around me, but then that's challenged, right, in day-to-day life. And people we encounter, that person's kind of hard to love. He made a gesture to me when he cut me off, going down the road, and I didn't do anything to him. Or, he was aggravated because I was turned into my driveway, and, how dare I be in his way, when he's going down the road. And you think, that person's kind of hard to love. You search for the love of God in that moment, And this, he says, but because your loving kindness is better than life. I rest in this love of Christ day. I just bask in the love of God. I meditate on the love of God day and night. He says, as I'm on my bed, I meditate on you in the night watches, because you have been my help. I think about you, Lord. You have been my rescuer. In the shadow of your wings, I will rejoice. I find protection in you. I find all of these things, total fulfillment in my life, to where it is dependent upon nothing. John 3:16 says what? God so loved this world. In Romans chapter 5, verse 6, he says, "For when we were still without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet perhaps for a good man someone would even dare to die. But God demonstrates His love toward us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Christ died for us. The love of God reached down and touched each one of our lives, not because it was merited, not because we deserve this love of God. For God so loved the world, not because of anything that they did, but Christ chose, right? He chose to love us. He chose to extend that love to those that blasphemed His name, for those that had sinned and trampled upon the law of God, and to those that had even cursed His name. That love still reached out down to them. You can't fathom that love. You can't muster up that kind of love to someone in your life that is belittling you and is cursing your name out and just loathes your very existence. And you're saying, I need to love this person. I need to love this person. I need to love this person. You can't do that. You cannot muster up this kind of love. This is the love of God that simply flows through us. And I find then that is a choice every single day of our life. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. What? That doesn't make sense. But the fact is, it is a choice in our lives. We choose the love of God. We choose to love today those around us. We choose to be consumed by love. A message Wednesday night and continuing on is a message of love. For the hurt that happens in our lives, for those that have been hurt by the churches, and for those that we have that have done wrong to us, and we hold on to these grudges and these things against us, and it consumes us. And this bitterness fills our heart. Anger is a choice too, right? It's a choice just as love is. You can choose to be consumed by hatred and anger and these things, and they will then become the reality of our lives, that we then become an angry, bitter, disgruntled person, and we have absolutely no joy in our life. Or the opposite of that is, we take that strange verse and says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials." Then you choose in this moment that I choose life in this moment. I choose love. I choose forgiveness in my life. I want the love of God to consume me. That love that took everything, that took malice and bitterness and buried it and says, if I can forgive, then you can forgive. This love of God that was demonstrated, that why we weren't even deserving of it. We say that we'll come to church and we'll bow our knee. I need to get some things together in my life. I need to get my life together, but you can't. But you can't. The love of God reaches down to those that are destitute of heart, for those that are trampled on by the world, for those that are on the ground laying there waiting for the stones to pelt them and for the life to be taken out of them. Christ came for those. And the love of God says, I'll take those. I'll take those. I'll take the ones that you don't want. We're going to go eat dinner tonight, disciples, and we're going to a tax collector's house. Oh boy. Lord, we don't go there. Lord, we're going to Samaria after that. Surely not, Lord. I must have something in my ear. We're not going down to eat with the dogs. Why would we do that? And this is the love of God. And they couldn't fathom, they couldn't understand it, that the love of God flows. And He says, because I choose to love, I am love. This love is who I am. It is expressed in everything that I do. I extend my love. It has no bounds. It has no merit. It is not dependent upon what people do to me or say to me. This love just flows and it consumes me. And you will be loved just as I am loved. And you will love the unlovable because it will be my love flowing through you. You'll be like Christ. This is a choice constantly, every single day of our life, that we must choose the love of God. We must choose to put down all of these things in our lives that take and distract from us, that pull away from us and say, you know what, today I choose joy. Despite the fact that I got to go do something I don't want to do, and despite the fact that I have to work with a coworker that I don't want to work with, and all of these things and all these variables around us, in this whole time, saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we're facing in life. It doesn't matter what our situation is. You're locked in a prison cell, and you have nothing to do but stare at the walls. And what do? We sing a song to the Lord. A song stirs up in our hearts, and the prison guards are saying, what could you possibly have to be joyful about? What could you possibly... Look at your situation in life. You have lost everything. You are now the lowest scum of the earth, sitting in a sewer pit prison cell. You have nothing to be joyful about. And you can say with a joy in your heart, yes, I do. Because Christ is still with me. His presence is still with me. And my joy is not dependent upon any circumstance that happens in my life. Therefore, even in the lowest parts of the earth, He's still there with me. And I still have this joy in my heart. I choose this. I choose this love of God to consume me. And that's a choice, because then as we go through life then, and it's so easy to become distracted by all of these things coming against us. And there is, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, and it's before me, and it's around me, it's at my side, there is death, there is destruction, there is hatred, there is malice, there is anger, there's all of these things surrounding at me, and the darts of the enemy are pulled in. They're ready to fire and shoot at me, just as David is saying. All of this is going on around me, but there I am walking with Christ. And all of this, I'm not focusing on any of these things around me. None of those things matter, because Christ is with me. He guards me. He protects me. He is my protection. He is my source of joy. I will go anywhere if I go with the Lord. And I will go nowhere if I don't go with the Lord. If He does not go with me, then I go nowhere, because I cannot do this in my own strength. So, I don't really think I want to say anything more than that. I don't have a long message, and I don't really feel like I want to add anything to that. Just a reminder that this is a choice constantly. It doesn't matter where we're at in our walk with the Lord. It doesn't matter what we've been through. It doesn't matter our past. It doesn't even matter our future. As long as our eyes are focused upon Christ, as long as we are constantly looking to Him, to choose to refocus that. And, no matter how far we think that we have come, and we're a, seasoned Christian, we're good at this game, you don't have the love of God. You do not love others like God has loved you. And you look at all that He took for you. And not just you, for to take the sins upon the world, for the most despicable things out there. He bore it all. You don't have that kind of love. We can love more. We can love, this is the greatest attribute. We have to have these attributes and these defining fruit that is being bore by our lives of living for Christ. This person is consumed by Christ. We can see it because of the attributes of their life. Why would you do the things that you do? Because we love. Because we love. Last week, serving in Alabama, helping with the tornadoes, was a somewhat of a different deployment. We was well covered, and we tarped a few roofs for people. Then, kind of after a few days, realized that we were kind of wrapping up. But our initial assessment team that had went down a few days before that, the last roof that they had done, a tree had fallen on families. The pastor that was church we're staying at, in fact, he was going there the last day to kind of see what his church could do to help. And he's like, I've lived here my whole life. He's like, how'd you guys find this place? He's like, I couldn't even find the place getting there. And going in, it was the people said they were trapped for 3 days, and you would understand why when you went there, because the roads are just, the trees are just stacked. They just cut and they 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 cut and through and cut and cut and cut, and finally got back to these people. And it's just a devastating experience for him and his wife there. And it said, they were trapped for days, and, they were just, in shock and trying to process and everything. A tree had fallen on their house and had damaged it. Our assessment team had kind of structurally put back a few things, just enough to put some tarps on the top and keep the water out. And so they came up and said, should you guys go, knew I was there to do construction. It's like, go see what you can do to help out, I'm like, all right, we'll go take a look at it and see. I'm like, yeah, we got a day. I was like, we'll rebuild it, And the guy, he's like, well, I can go get some metal. And get some metal, we'll finish it out, And the whole end wall was destroyed, and we're rebuilding that. And, basically rebuilt the whole, end of the house that the tree had fallen on in a day. And the pastor there, he owns a construction company. He came the last day and says, he's like, yeah, I'm going to send my guys out. We'll finish the sheetrock. We're going to put you a new window in and do all this. And the guy, he says, he had been hurt by church, had fallen out of church. And he said, you know what? He's a kind of a quiet, country guy, but, you could tell they were just so touched by everything. He says, I would go through a tornado again to meet every one of you. That is the love of God demonstrated. And the world needs to see that. The hurting and the lost, they may be wrong. They may be wrong. And they may be caught in sin. And you could throw the Bible at them and say, you're a sinner and you've done wrong. But maybe, just maybe, they need to see the love of God in you. And maybe, just maybe, the love of God is more powerful than any judgment that you could ever cast or throw at somebody in your life. And that's tough to understand. You say, yeah, we need this and we need that. Maybe so. Maybe so. But don't underestimate the love of God. People aren't drawn to the cross because of judgments of the church or anything else. Those destitute, broken people that have been cast aside, that nobody loves anymore, what draws them to the cross is love. They see that love that He could love me in this situation, this Christ, this God, He can love me. I want to hear more about that because I've never experienced love in my life. If I were to share another verse, it would be 1 Corinthians. And the greatest of these is love. And if I don't have love, then we're just clanging cymbals, he says. We're just playing church. We're just casting judgments. And that is a choice that we're making in our lives. We are choosing to do these things. Everything that we do in life is based on our free will and a choice that we have. And you're faced with this every single day that you wake up and you have breath is your opportunity to choose, what will I do with it today? What will I do with my life? And the greatest thing that you can do is bask in the love of Jesus Christ and be consumed with the love of Jesus Christ, because then it flows through you. And you go and you do, and people see it and they say, why? Why is that? Why are you not doing the things that the other people do? Why are you different from the rest of the world? Because of the love of God. Because that's all there is. We're driven by this love. We are consumed by this love. Just flows through us, and we just want to do and to give of ourselves because we don't even care about ourselves anymore. It has nothing to do with us. It has all to do with Christ and this flow and this giving that He does. Because even when I'm give out and I have nothing left to give, we realize it just fill me up again. It just fill me up again, and it'll just continue to flow through me. So I give. I don't ever have to hold on to anything. I just let it flow through me. That's the love of God today. So choose love, choose life, choose Christ. It's a lot better way to live than holding on to anger and malice and bitterness towards people in the church, to friends and family that have hurt you, and you've held on to it all of these years. Let it go. Let it go. Lay it at the foot of the cross and say, Lord, I lay this down and I choose to pick up love instead. I want to walk in love today. I want those around me to see the love of God in me. That's my choice today. So let us choose love and reflect on the love of God.